All right, gonna do a walk around here on my 98 Dyna. This is pretty uh, reasonably customized bike, I guess. I've owned it for what three years now, something like that, and I took it down to San Felipe last year for the El Diablo run, and it's just a really good, reliable Dyna. It's an FXDS convertible model, so I don't have any of the windshield or original bags, but it did have a quick detach windshield originally. And the quick detach bags, it's set up pretty unique for long distance riding. Like I said, I owned it and rode it daily for a couple years, and then I modified it quite a bit to get ready for 3,000 mile trip to Mexico and back, which it did great, very reliable. So yeah, and it's set up with ghost bracket, quick disconnect luggage, which are these mounts here. And it's set up with these Harbor Freight Pelican case knockoffs with the brackets on them. So it's got really nice luggage capacity, and it's a really reliable and comfortable long distance bike. So it's interesting. You don't see too many of these. 90,500 miles on the bike. Now, that's true for the chassis, and everything is correct. Original paint, original bodywork, everything. But the motor was rebuilt. Originally, I have paperwork showing, I think, 45K, 50K, somewhere around there. A rebuild with an S&S 96-inch kit. And since then, I don't know. In my experience has probably had the top end refreshed in that the last 45,000 miles, but I didn't do it, and it certainly doesn't need it. It runs perfectly, doesn't smoke, great compression, tons of power. So yeah, anyways, it's high mileage, but it's a really well maintained bike. I bought it from the previous owner that had had it for 10 years, I believe, and he used it as a long distance touring bike, and he bought it from a friend that was the original owner that used it as a long distance touring bike. So it's always been maintained, and it has the miles on it to show that it's been used like that. But it's always been well maintained. But it is a 90,000 mile Dyna. The whole motor's been resealed and all. I've resealed the transmission. Does drip a little bit of oil still, but I don't think you're getting away from that on a older Evo motor Harley. 12-inch narrow apes, TC Brothers, I believe, which are super comfortable. I love them on these. Guys, tons of stuff. I swapped mags onto it over the winter, and it's got brand new Shinko tires. Last year I did tons of maintenance ready for the trip, so roughly, 4,000 miles ago, it has new rotors, pads, front and rear. Forks were rebuilt, fork gators put on. It's got a brand new S&S carb, lowbrow oil pressure gauge, which it always has excellent oil pressure, as we'll show. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, brakes, rear DNA caliper on the rear, so it stops like crazy. New master cylinder for the rear. It's got a super trap 2-into-1, and it's jetted for it here in Colorado, 5,000 feet in Fort Collins. Custom sissy bar with luggage rack, so I needed that for the trip. I'm keeping my lowbrow spark plug holder and wrench. I love that thing. Yeah, what else? Good belt. Got progressive shocks. Believe it has progressive springs in the forks. Primary chain is great. Clutch is great. No problems there. It has a new ignition. It has the Ultima ignition kit. New plugs, wires, all that stuff. Mid controls. New shift lever. The old one, the splines were worn out. I replaced that last season because it was getting kind of wobbly. Yeah, new gas cap last year. New levers, well, a couple years ago, I guess. Hand guards, which are great for freeway riding. Had a custom brake line made for the taller bars that still uses the 2-into-1 brake line splitter down there. stock calipers up front. Yeah, and there's still a little bit of mud on the tires and stuff. I took a long ride last weekend, and there was a lot of snow and runoff and stuff on the mountains, so still detailing it some more. But Magnum shielding cables that are custom length and routed. Rebuilt master cylinder for the front. Has a three-phase charging system conversion, so it's got a real powerful stator and flywheel, and I run our RM stator CNC aluminum regulators. This is actually running a prototype regulator. It'll be replaced with our CNC, it'll look exactly the same, but one of our series type regulators. LED headlight, turn signals up front, has a Badlands turn signal load equalizer so that it works fine with LEDs, integrated taillight. Yeah, and that's all the fluids and stuff I did last year after Mexico. I haven't changed them again, but it only has much less than 1,000 miles. I have to look it up since the last service. So yeah, it's ready to rock for the season. And yeah, I mean, it's an older Dyna and higher mileage, but it's like I said, rode it to Mexico. I'd ride this thing across the country. Tank, oh yeah, I have a tank lift on it, 2.5 inches maybe. And yeah, I assume it has adjustable push rods. I know it has an S&S cam in it. I have the paperwork on that and a picture of the number. I forget, but it's an S&S cam that they recommend and package with a 96-inch kit. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Quick disconnects on the fuel lines so you can take the tank off easily. Oh, LaPera kickflip seat. Super comfortable seat. Best Harley seat I've ever had. Looks good and really comfortable with the mids. Yeah, it's just an awesome bike. I don't really want to sell it, but I've got a lot of other bikes right now. My XR and a Triumph that's constantly rebuilding, and an Airhead I'm rebuilding. And I've got some trips this summer, and I think this one's great, but I really just want to go ahead and upgrade again to it. I had a nice GS 1150 last year, or for years, that I sold last year, and I kind of regret it. I just want one newer, really new, fuel-injected, fairly modern bike in my stable, and I don't have one. And I like all the old bikes, and I love this Dyna, and there's no like mechanical reason or anything I'm selling it. I just think it's the one I'll ride the least now with the new getting a new bike. Yeah, so, and I've put, God, I don't even know, at least 10,000 miles on this myself. It's just a great bike. Anyways, let's fire it up and here. So key on down here, choke it a little bit. A little more choke. Alright, oh, I was going to show oil pressure. So this is still pretty cool. Yeah, so cold idle is 20 pounds. When it's hot, it'll certainly, the oil thins out, it'll drop down 12 maybe, I forget. But strong oil pressure all the time on this bike. Yeah, so the motor's very healthy. Like I said, does drip a little bit of oil. I've replaced all the oil lines. I've resealed the top cover here at the transmission and oil tank. But yeah, especially when it gets hot and thins out, it drips some oil. And short of, you know, resealing everything again, or not again, I haven't, but you know, I think that's pretty common for these. All right, cool. Well, hope you like it. And yeah, I'm kind of regrettably, but I'm going to put it up for sale. So hopefully you see this if you're checking it out, and let me know if you're interested.